Why it won't be the San Francisco 49ers winning the NFC West this season. The 2024 Locked On NFL season previews continue right now.
This is the 2024 Locked On NFL season preview, only on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the 2024 Locked On NFL season previews. This episode, we, of course, if you recognize any of us here, are focused on the NFC West. I did not write the cold open. Of course, the San Francisco 49ers are winning the West, or are they? We've got some difference of opinions, I bet, in this conversation. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I am Brian Peacock, host of Locked On 49ers, and I'll be your host for this divisional preview. Joining me are my colleagues from the Locked On Podcast Network. We've got none other than Alex Clancy, the host of Locked On Cardinals, Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks, and Doug McCain, co-host of Locked On Rams, coming at you in this episode. We always have a lot of fun in our crossover episodes, talking to each other each year. So this is our kickoff episode for this season. Get a chance to go at each other a little bit. And today we're looking at the contenders. What makes a successful season for each team? Any early hot seats? What one thing could derail each team's season? Win totals, MVP candidates, and we're going to talk about each other's teams as well. Give some flowers out to the other teams in the division as we enter a season-long battle for the division title. So let's start by looking toward the end of the season first. Who will win this division? And I'm going to start with Doug and the second place team in the NFC West from last year, because I don't want to put myself first here, and I do want to hear from some of you folks. Doug McCain of Locked On Rams. Doug, who's going to win this division in 2024?
I think it's going to be a highly contested division. I think, though, the Rams surprised the NFL last season by making the playoffs when everyone thought they were tanking for Caleb Williams. They were going to win 5 games, and they lose a nail-biter to the Lions in the wild card round. I think the Rams are going to take this division. I know that sounds biased. I know the bias is real, but I do think they have the talent. I think that really it's a make or break year for this team. I think if the Rams don't have a successful season, let's say Cooper Kupp doesn't find it, and you have another injury-plagued season for him, he gets less than 1,000 yards, and the offensive line gets derailed and decimated by injuries again, and Matthew Stafford gets banged up, and the defense isn't able to fill Aaron Donald's shoes, and they might go for a complete rebuild, and that's why kind of the contracts are set up with Matthew Stafford. If you saw some of the offseason drama with him, kind of what it was, hey, it's kind of a one-year deal essentially at this point, where if things go right, they'll go back to the negotiating table and move forward with him. If they don't, the Rams kind of have an out. They have an out with Kupp. They have an out with Stafford. So that's why it's very pivotal for this season for them to have success. And I think it's division win and postseason success or bust.
Guys, what I heard is what the Rams are about to fall apart completely. I'm not sure what we should expect from a team that lost the best defensive player in the world, and they were on shaky ground before, while they still had that player. Judging by Alex Clancy's furrowed brow right now, I think he's got something to say about that, but we got to go to the third place team from the division last year, and Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks first. Who's going to win this division in 2024, Corbin?
I still think this is the 49ers division, though I do think that window is starting to close. And this is, I think, the oldest team in the NFL now. I saw the graphic yesterday. So the 49ers, their chance to win a Super Bowl, that window, I feel like is open, but it is getting much narrower. It's close to slamming shut. But I'm going to have the 49ers winning this division. And I think the Rams and the Seahawks are going to be right there with them. And those darn Cardinals, look, I'm just going to say this right now. I don't think Arizona's a playoff team, but I think that's going to be one of those teams that you don't want to play, especially the second half of the season, because they've got some really good young players. So this division has a chance to be one of the best in the entire NFL. I still think the 49ers, the class this division, but I think that the Rams and the Seahawks especially have closed that gap. And so I could see this being a division that isn't decided till the last couple of weeks of the season, because you do have a lot of really good players in this division, and you've got some really good coaches. It's weird saying Pete Carroll being out, that maybe Seattle upgraded, but there's a chance Mike McDonald could be that guy. This is just going to be a really exciting division to watch from start to finish. And I think all 4 teams are going to be very competitive.
Alex, who's winning the West?
I mean, the Atlanta Falcons, who haven't been in the NFC West since 1998, have a better chance of winning the division than the Rams. What are we doing here, guys? We're just saying stuff? The 49ers are going to win the division. It's the best thing to happen for the rest of the NFC West. I said this about the Rams when they won the Super Bowl that year. That is the best thing that could have happened for the rest of the NFC West, because that means Von Miller leaves, Odell Beckham leaves, everybody got their ring, and then they're off to make money elsewhere. So I think the 49ers have the shortest future pacing positivity out of any team in the NFC West, because it's either quarterback or everybody else. You give them one more year, barring any sort of, unforeseen massive injuries. I think they just have too much star power to not win the division. So I just think it's going to be easy for them this year, comparatively speaking, and then we'll see what happens in 2025 when it'll be wide open.
Look, I was impressed with the Rams last year, and clearly they can coach up a football team. And I think, even though there was a no-name roster in Los Angeles, they're able to allow those guys to play up. Part of that, though, is Aaron Donald on the defensive side. And then you lose your defense coordinator, Raheem Morris, as well. So it's brain drain on top of that. Zach Robinson, I don't know how much he's going to make a difference losing him to the Rams offense. Both those coaches going to the Atlanta Falcons. And Matthew Stafford, it's just a little too tenuous with Matthew Stafford meaning too much to them. And, is his arm going to hang on? How long is it going to hang on? It's hard for me to believe that the Rams can take over the 49ers. I love the direction that the Cardinals are going right now. Just the fact that they've gotten the ship in the right direction, I think, is really important for that team to win the division. I can't say that. Seahawks, we just don't know. Like, first-time coach, a lot of young coaches on that staff. There's a lot of talent on the Seahawks roster. How will it come together? Will there be some growing pains? So too many questions for me. And Vegas agrees the 49ers are going to win the division in 2024. Over-under win totals, and actually the FanDuel win total over-unders, guys, 11.5 for the 49ers. There's not a team within 3 wins of the 49ers, according to our friends at FanDuel. So 11.5 for the 49ers, 8.5 wins for the Rams, and then 7.5 wins each for the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Corbin, I'm going to go to you. Is that disrespectful to the Seahawks? 7.5 over-under win total?
I think it is. They won 9 games each of the last 2 seasons with a defense that just flat out stunk. And I'm sorry, even if Mike McDonald isn't able to make this look like the Ravens defense the last 2 years, even if it's a top 15 defense with the weapons that they've got on offense, and Ryan Grubb, I think, is going to be a fantastic NFL offensive coordinator. So I don't think the Seahawks are winning this division, but they won 9 games the last 2 years without a defense to speak of most of the year. They've got some really fun pieces on that side of the ball. I think Mike McDonald is a wonderkind when it comes to coaching up on that side of the ball. So I think that 7.5 is way too low. I could see 2 or 3 teams getting to double-digit wins in this division this year. I really believe there's that kind of talent in this division. But 9 wins would probably be my safe spot with Seattle.
Doug, if the Rams are going to win the division, they're going over 8.5 wins, right?
Absolutely. I think 11 wins is a sweet spot for the Rams. I definitely think the 49ers, to dethrone them, I mean, it could even take more than that. I mean, I could absolutely see a world where the 49ers do win this division. Actually, there was a poll to see who was going to win the NFC West, and I accidentally clicked on the 49ers, and I meant to click on the Rams, so kind of feel bad about that. But still, I definitely think that sorry, man, I messed up. But
yeah, your fingertip was making the more accurate prediction.
My fingertip was my brain, my heart. Yeah, it was definitely a little miscalculation there. But I mean, absolutely. I think when you look at this Rams team, like I said, the way that everything sets up, haven't talked about the defense yet, but you went out there, you addressed the corner spot, bring in Tre'Davious White. If he comes back healthy, he plays at an all-pro level. Darius Williams, you go and get Cameron Curl. It's been a lot of moves made kind of under the radar for this team. And look, this is a team that almost averaged 30 points per game last year on offense, and I think they're going to be even better this year. There's a lot of people sleeping on the Rams, and for good reason. Look, the 49ers, they've been the king of this division for a while now. We know that. They still have the talent. They still have all the ingredients to get that done. But still, I think this is the year where you have to focus on the fact that when you have the best quarterback in the division as far as just overall arm talent in Matthew Stafford, who's still out to prove that he's one of the best in the league. I think there's a world where he could finish top 3 in the MVP voting by the end of the season. And you have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Sean McVay that's re-energized and he's hungry. And like I said at the top of the show, this is either going to be a continuation of these pillars I mean, Les Snead, the Rams general manager, called them the weight-bearing walls, right? Aaron Donald, he was one. He's retired. Matthew Stafford, he still has it. It's been banged up, but we'll see if that continues. Cooper Kupp was the other one, and he hasn't been the same player since 2021. So still think 11 wins is definitely very, very possible for this team. Don't underestimate the Rams, I'm telling you.
Optimism. Do you have it, Alex, in Arizona for those Cardinals to go over 7.5 wins this year?
Can I push? Is that possible? Can
No.
you push a half a win?
A tie?
Here's the thing. One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is every team in the NFC West has a murderer's row schedule. NFC North and AFC East is not going to be easy this year. So when you look at it, I can see all the teams going under because of that. It's not the interdivision that I'm worried about. It's all the other games they have to play. So with Kyler Murray and that offense having to carry the weight for a very young, inexperienced defense, they're going to have to put up a 30-burger to win. And I mean, you guys know, having to win double the amount of games you won year previous, aside from completely doing what Atlanta did on their defense and doing all of these things completely reshape the roster, it's nearly impossible. So I would say 7's the number, and I think winning 75% more games than you did the year before deserves a bravo. So I'll take the under, but just barely.
11.5 wins is a lot. It's tied for the most in the NFL. I'm actually going to go under by a half game. I have the Niners at 11 wins. The vibes are a little weird right now around the 49ers. As of this recording, no Ayuk signed, no Trent Williams signed. I think by the start of the season, they will be signed. And if they are signed, and I think that could flip really quick with vibes, and you go win a primetime game against the Jets, and then I'm taking the over if all that happens in a row. And that could very well happen by the end of week 1 in the NFL season. But things feel a little weird right now. And 11.5 is a pretty big win total. I'm going to say 11 wins for the 49ers. It's still winning the division in 2024. We're just getting started here. Coming up, what's the one thing that could derail the success of each season? It's the 2024 Locked On NFL season preview of the NFC West. Today's NFC West preview is sponsored by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And it couldn't be simpler. You see that green check? You know that part is going to fit. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The 2024 Locked On NFL season previews continue. A reminder, you can get daily coverage of your favorite NFL team by subscribing to their Locked On podcast. We also have the NFL covered nationally with the Locked On NFL podcast, Locked On NFL Scouting, Peacock and Williamson, featuring yours truly, Locked On Fantasy Football, Locked On Dynasty, and get 24/7 coverage of the NFL with our brand new Locked On NFL stream, free on YouTube and Amazon Fire TVs. All right, guys, we're looking at expectations now for each team and what could derail those expectations in 2024. Corbin, the Seahawks, what's the pitfall? What's the thing they need to avoid to have a successful year?
Their offensive line has to at least be pedestrian. And that is, that it might seem like a crazy expectation, but they have been one of the worst offensive lines chronically throughout the Pete Carroll era. They have made some intriguing moves with that group. Most recently, Connor Williams signing a guy that I believe has all-pro type talent when he's healthy. He's coming off a torn ACL, but he practiced some this week. So there's optimism he's going to be able to play in week 1. Charles Cross looks like he's ready for a year 3 breakout at left tackle. They've got some good young guards that they're excited about. Anthony Bradford, Christian Haynes. The big question mark is Abe Lucas going to be healthy. And right now it doesn't look like he's going to be ready for the start of the season. And that really lowers the ceiling, in my opinion, for that offensive line.
Doug, what's that thing that could derail the Rams from winning the division as you expect them to do this season?
Look, there's a world where the Rams could finish with a bottom third defense, even worse than that, because like we said, You don't know how they're going to perform without Aaron Donald, but also you still have a lot of young, inexperienced players along that defensive line. I mean, Bobby Brown has to take a big step forward at nose. You need the rookies and Braden Fisk and Jared Verse to really have an impact on day one. The cornerbacks really on paper are average to just slightly above average at their best. So really so many question marks on the defensive side of the football. You just don't know how they're going to perform. Then on top of everything else, you have a first-time defensive coordinator in Chris Shula. So you add that all together, there's just such an unknown element to their defense that we have to see it to see if things really materialize to a defense that can actually perform well and complement this offense and just keep them in games so they can outscore teams.
Yeah, it's hard to replace someone like Aaron Donald with a rookie and even a pair of rookies, and unfortunately you can't.
Every day I'm the Wolverine meme, dude. Just looking at my picture of Aaron Donald looking sad. AD, if you're watching, come back. AD, come back. I mean, yeah, it's pain.
It'd be easier if you could play 12 guys on defense and actually replace one guy with two guys. You might have a better shot at that. Alex, it's a new look team. Firepower on offense been added. A couple draft picks on defense too that nobody's talking about. What's the derail thing? What's the thing that's going to derail this team off the tracks in 2024?
First, I want to give Doug a shout out for the baby comeback reference. I think went over both the other people's heads, but I got you, kid.
My man.
Players, what are we doing here, Peacock? Yeah, so here's the thing. The biggest thing that could derail this team is the defense, and I think that's a trend at this point. Very young defense, a lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns, but not negative question marks in the sense that what the hell are they doing? More like who's going to step up and how quickly. And they've got a couple guys, as you mentioned, that were later round picks, Dadrian Taylor-Demerson from the safety position out of Texas Tech, 4th round pick, and Xavier Thomas, a 5th round pick out of Clemson, who have both shown massive flashes during the preseason. Xavier Thomas was only a 5th round pick because he had a couple injuries at Clemson. But you group that together with pretty much a lack of pass rush and lack of any sort of experience in the cornerback room, aside from Sean Murphy-Bunting, who's been in the league since 2019, won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady, was with Tennessee last year, kind of had a down year. We don't know what we don't know yet. And it's going to be very, very quick and swift to find out all of those questions. And Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis have been wizards, weird, and just like the antithesis of methodical and predictable on the defensive side of the ball. If you are a talented player, you will be on the field. And they'll just move things around and change the base and scheme and everything like that to maximize the potential that they have. The offense is going to have to carry this team. I'm mirroring the thing the other two guys said, but I believe that the Cardinals are in the best position for the offense to carry said team than the other two because they've got the youngest, most talented quarterback, in my opinion. They've got probably the best offensive line at this point, and they've got the best group of skill position players with Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., James Conner, Trey Benson, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. The list goes on and on. So all they need to do is turn the switch on with Drew Petzing's offense, and this team could definitely surprise some people in 24.
Like the direction that offense could be going here under Drew Petzing, and I think they got their coaching hires right, as weird as it looked. With Jonathan Gadden and how he started.
Sorry, there's no flap rim hat and Yeezys. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's not buttoned up like that.
Love it. And by the way, I had my prerogative from Bobby Brown in my head after Doug mentioned Bobby Brown of the Rams there. That's why I didn't get in with the baby come back.
Yeah.
49ers are, I mentioned the vibes. That's probably the biggest thing. This is a team with stars in multiple levels of the team, offensively and defensively. And even last offseason, we forget that things were kind of weird with Brock Purdy's injury. And at the end of the preseason, Trey Lance was still on the roster for the 49ers. So vibes were kind of odd last year too. And they've overcome big losses. They haven't had the Super Bowl hangovers in the past, but if that hangover hits, I think that's probably the biggest thing that could derail this team. They've still got to flip the switch, and we're waiting for that to happen. It's too easy to say injuries, but more could affect this team than just injuries. And they've got to snap out of whatever's going on right now, because they seemed even flat in training camp practices with music.
Yeah, I was talking about the vibes. Like on the vibe meter right now, Brian, have they picked up? Are they trending in the right direction? And what is the vibe meter like right now?
No, it's bad. It's players are tired of answering questions about other players' holdouts. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are tired of answering questions about it, but they don't have any answers either. So I feel like the Brandon Ayuk thing, either if you trade him or you bring him back, whatever it is, it's got to be figured out first. And then you take that next step, and now you're into the season, and then you're just refreshed. And especially if you win a big game against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets in week 1. That's why I had the over if those things happen in a row. If if those holdouts start lingering into the season, that's really bad vibes, and you start 0-1 or something like that, then we might see some sky falling from 49ers fans. All right, quick answers, guys. Who are going to be your MVPs in this division? And Alex, we'll start with you. I know the MVP of my fantasy team might be Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I think the only player, and I don't say this just to say it, I don't say it, this is not a homer thing whatsoever. The only player that is employed by a team who is in the NFC West that could actually win an NFL MVP in 2024 is Kyler Murray. I don't think that anybody on the 49ers can. You're not going to give it to Christian McCaffrey. It's kind of friendly fire with that because there's too many good players. I don't think Matthew Stafford, with his inability to run the ball, can do it. And I don't see anybody on Seattle. Like, I think that Geno Smith is maybe going to struggle if he's going to have to throw the ball 25% more than he has up until this point. So I think the only guy who's equipped to put it all together and win an MVP is Kyler Murray. So I'll say him, and I'll say Christian McCaffrey because he's the best non-quarterback in the NFL, offense or defense.
Corbin, who's the MVP of the West?
I think you got to put Geno Smith in that conversation. And I'm saying that from what I've watched at training camp. Ryan Grubb is a great offensive coordinator. And you look at the weapons that he's got. Metcalf, I think, is going to have the best season in his career. He just looks like a different player. Tyler Lockett can still play. Jackson Smith-Njigba has a chance to be a sophomore sensation. They've got some good pieces in the backfield. It just boils down to the offensive line. I mean, Geno Smith threw 30 touchdowns 2 years ago with a crappy offensive line and an offensive coordinator who I wish well for Caleb Williams in Chicago, having to deal with it. I just think Geno Smith has all the pieces there. I agree with Clancy, though, if Kyler Murray is healthy with Marvin Harrison Jr. now, those two guys you can make some really good cases for. I know Geno Smith's not being talked about nationally, but I've seen how he looks throwing in this offense, and maybe it doesn't transition to games, but you can make an argument he's got as good of a receiving core as anybody in the NFL. And if the line's holding up, that offense could be extremely potent.
Doug, who is the MVP of this division at the end of 2024?
Got to go Matthew Stafford. And I think you look at the way he performed back in 2021, threw close to 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, but 17 interceptions. I think you see less touchdowns this year, but also less interceptions because of the commitment to the run game. Last couple of seasons, Rams 25th in the run game in 2021, last in 2022, 27th. Last year, 7th in the league with the emergence of Kyron Williams. You drafted Blake Corum. So really, I think you judge him by the touchdown to interception ratio. If the defense clicks, that only helps. As far as the league, though, I definitely think that he could finish top 3, not winning the whole league, but I definitely think he's the MVP in this division because I think the year he's going to have is going to be pretty special.
I disagree with your take, Alex, by the way, about the only person that could win the division, because I do think it would be overwhelmingly Matthew Stafford if they have that kind of season that Doug thinks they're going to have in Los Angeles. And for Brock Purdy to win it, even though he is the best quarterback in the division, Christian McCaffrey, you have to break his leg or something because they'll split both.
Knock on wood.
I think the most
that's your guy.
Would be probably Matthew Stafford, in my opinion. All right. Next, guys, we're about to enter a grueling 18-week season where we all want the teams we cover to come out on top. Before the battle begins, though, we give each other some flowers. It's the 2024 Locked On NFL season preview of the NFC West. This very special episode of the Locked On Podcast NFC West preview is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And you've heard us talk so much about FanDuel, and there's a reason they're America's #1 sportsbook. And they have something very special for you football fans as the football season gets ready to kick off. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. So if you want those tasty prop bets, the over-unders in the NFC West, I think the 49ers might go over that 11.5 win total. Yeah, you can find that and so much more, every sport imaginable at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. The 2024 Locked On NFL season preview continues. A reminder, you can get daily coverage of your favorite NFL team by subscribing to their Locked On podcast. We also have the NFL covered nationally with Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL Scouting, Peacock and Williamson, Locked On Fantasy Football, Locked On Dynasty Football, and get 24/7 coverage of the NFL with our brand new Locked On NFL stream free on YouTube and Amazon Fire TVs. All right, guys, each host is going to pick. You can't pick your own team, Doug, with this one, okay? Each host picks something to give flowers for based off something they admire about some other team in the division. Is it that defensive scheme? Is it their dedication to the run game? Anything that stands out, not just, I like your good QB or something like that too. Dig a little deep if you can, guys. Corbin, we'll go to you first. What's something what flowers do you want to give out in the NFC West?
Look, I got to just back up the Brinks truck without money and just have roses in there for the Arizona Cardinals run game. I being a former running back and running backs coach, watching the way that the Cardinals chewed people up the second half last year, it was hard to watch when you were covering a Seahawks Cardinals game, but I just think James Conner is one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. I love the scheme, the big creases that were being created because of the way that scheme operates. And I think that's going to carry over into this year. And that's another reason that I'm saying, hey, not so fast with Arizona that they're going to finish dead last. This is a team that can run the football. If the defense is able to at least be respectable by the end of the season with that run game and the weapons they've got in their passing game, Arizona could surprise some people. But I'm giving the flowers for that run game because I think it is one of the most impressive in the NFL right now.
Doug, you got any flowers to give out in the West?
I'm definitely giving out some flowers, too, to the Arizona Cardinals. I think Arizona Cardinals are going to be a really fun team to watch. I love the draft last couple of years. I think Paris Johnson and Marvin Harrison Jr. bringing him in. Big Buckeye guy. I figure my mom went to Ohio State, so she loves her Buckeyes. So I just think Jonathan Gannon, the fire he brings, just kind of the commitment to just the team that kind of realizes you got the Rams, you got the 49ers, and where the Cardinals are at right now as far as their rebuild. I think they're building for the long haul, and I think the foundation they have in place, I think is impressive. I definitely think the Cardinals for sure. And I also a Kyler Murray fantasy guy too. So there's that.
I love how everyone's so willing to give flowers to the Cardinals because they're not worried about that team beating them in the standings in the NFC West. Alex, what flowers do you want to give out this year?
For the Rams, it's Cooper Kupp. And I don't understand why people think that Cooper Kupp is done. Cooper Kupp is one of the most dangerous wide receivers that we've seen in the last 20 years. Okay. He gives me Jordy Nelson vibes because Jordy Nelson was severely underrated with Aaron Rodgers. They had this rapport that was unmatched. And you see that with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp.
I want to give my flowers to look. I've got some skepticism with all three of the opponents here in the NFC.
Smell these, man.
And I love Marvin Harrison Jr. and those sweet feet and the way he runs routes. But I still got to see it. The young coaching staff. I think they might have got some really smart coaches there in Seattle. But I still got to see it. I love the way that Sean McVay coaches a football team. But I'm still a little skeptical of the Rams, so I still want to see it. So the flowers I want to give out here are to the extremely talented and handsome hosts of each respective podcast. And I love getting a chance to talk to you guys twice a year and a third year on this preview episode. I think the listeners in the Locked On Podcast Network NFC West are very lucky to have you guys hosting the shows for their teams. Guys, let's talk rookies, and we got to talk conference records before we get out of here as well, too. So what's your favorite rookie, Doug, this year in the NFC West?
Favorite rookie? Man, I probably double down and say Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he has a chance. I think he has Hall of Fame potential. I mean, him and Rome Odunze, lots of talented wide receivers, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr., just everything that I watched a lot of Ohio State football in the last couple of seasons, and the route running, the ability just to make plays, and to see him with Kyler Murray. Last year he was with McCord. We called him a Honda McCord in Ohio, right? The way he performed, but to see him with a dynamic playmaker and Kyler Murray, who I think is out to prove that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league still as far as the quickness, the ability. I think he's ready to reemerge. So really, really excited about that talent. And it's just funny to see him to have potentially a trajectory like a Larry Fitzgerald, where he was just so consistent for so long. I definitely think he has the potential. A little weird to give guys Hall of Fame comparisons as a rookie where they haven't done anything, but he does feel like a guy that has all the tools to be really good for a really long period of time and be one of those guys for the Cardinals.
Alex?
Yeah.
Yep.
Listen, we're all fans when it comes down to it. We all do fantasy football. We all do all that stuff. It's like, where's the popcorn coming from? And where the popcorn coming from, and can it actually translate to wins for a team? So I have an honorable mention, but Marvin Harrison Jr., it's like there's very few better situations that Marvin Harrison Jr. could have gotten drafted into. He's not the first option. He's not drafted to save the offense. It's going to be James Conner, it's going to be Trey McBride, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. will emerge as option one at some point. He can just be a young player and just continue with the rapport he has with Kyler Murray.
Corbin, who's your rookie difference maker in the West?
Byron Murphy II is a monster.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this because the Seahawks drafted him. Look, I was thinking this before the Seahawks picked him. I watched there's just guys that you see in the practice field the first time. They're just like, that dude is different. And you see this guy come out there and he's got calves that are the size of elm trees. And he moves like a squirrel almost. Like the dude is just insanely athletic for a guy that size. And he bull rushes like a madman. I'm not going to compare him to Aaron Donald. And there have been a few people, John Schneider. And I think John Schneider immediately was like, I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to say John Randall.
Byron Murphy's a great pick. Marvin Harrison Jr., the family business is football. Maybe since Nick Bosa, he's the most ready to jump in and play week one as a rookie as we've seen in the NFL draft. And those are both great answers. The correct answer, though, is Dominic Pooney, 49ers third round guard, winning the right guard job for the San Francisco 49ers, protecting this year's MVP quarterback in Brock Purdy. Doug, what's the order of the West this year?
I think that the Rams have the potential, if the defense is able to show them something and at least just crack the top 15, I think the Rams win this division. I think it goes Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, and Seahawks.
Ooh. Alex, what do you think?
49ers, like the problem with anything other than the 49ers is if Nick Bosa goes down, they can recover. If Fred Warner gets hurt, they can recover. If any of their corners go down, their pass rush is so good that it doesn't matter. Like Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, they got 48 running backs. They've got so many skill position players on both sides of the ball at a Pro Bowl level that if one or two get hurt for extended periods of time, they can recover. Or they'll just trade for somebody and give up their 2048 draft pick. So like with San Francisco, I just feel like this is the last year where it's in Sharpie, they will win the division. I think that the Rams and Cardinals could be one game apart from each other, sandwiched in the middle. I will give the Rams still the leg up because the Cardinals defense is a year away. I do think the Cardinals will have a better record than Seattle because I think that Geno Smith will be exposed this year as what he was his entire, and this isn't a slight, this is the truth. He was a backup quarterback for the last 90% of his career, and he had this resurgence, which is incredible. And the fact that he finally got paid is incredible. All of those things. And I don't think with this new offense, you see how much Washington threw the ball last year? I don't see this offense with Geno Smith being able to throw the volume that's necessary to be able to keep it up. And I know it's not going to be exactly the same. I don't see it. I think they're going to backslide a little bit and they will finish last in the division.
Corbin, Alex clearly hasn't seen Geno Smith and Ryan Grubb's offense in training camp. Just disrespectful from the Locked On Cardinals.
Bring it on. Hey, bring it on. Listen, I've got the 49ers, and then I got the Seahawks finishing second with the Rams right behind them. Look, the Cardinals are coming. I think that they're a year away, though. I'm not ready to make that jump, putting them up there into second or third place. I do think people are sleeping on Seattle, and I think people are sleeping on Geno Smith. Like, the dude's got incredible arm talent, and he always has. And I mentioned it earlier, the weapons that he has to throw to. I think the defense, I haven't mentioned Devin Witherspoon the entire day. Devin Witherspoon could be a perennial all-pro. He's that kind of talent. Byron Murphy's going to be an impact player early. Uchenna Nwosu, Leonard Williams. I mean, there's a lot of talent on that football team. The question is, can Mike McDonald get that defense playing to its potential? And is the offensive line going to allow Geno Smith to play to the level I think he's capable of? And the other thing I'll say, and this is just for Alex, I know Washington threw the ball over the place the last 2 years, but look at Ryan Grubb's entire history. He is an offensive line guy at heart, and he's had some really good run games in his career. Ken Walker III and Zach Charbonnet, they're ready to run the football in his offense. So this is not going to be greatest show on turf type thing. They're going to run the damn ball.
Yeah, I'm not a Geno truther, but I will say that him with a healthy offensive line is a totally different player. I'm not a Geno truther. I think he's kind of a 9-8 type quarterback, but still, definitely he's not their biggest problem. I definitely agree with that.
I like Geno. Not enough for the Seahawks to win the West, though. The 49ers are going to clinch in early November, have a huge lead on the rest of the division. Niners won. And when teams arrive in the NFL, they arrive quickly. Arizona Cardinals tied for second, win the tiebreak to win second in the West with the Seahawks, and a distant fourth, Doug's Los Angeles Rams, to finish up the cellar.
Wow.
The NFC
Shot
West.
fire.
There we go.
We're gonna have to have this on recording.
I'm clipping this and I'm watching it before every Locked On Rams show as motivation. This is what I'm doing, man. I'm gonna listen to Eminem's Lose Yourself, then this, and then I'm gonna be fired up for every single show. So I love it.
I may or may not have flipped the Rams and the Cardinals during this podcast on that.
I have that effect on people, man. You just speak the truth and just crazy things happen, you know? It's
Absolutely.
crazy.
For Alex Clancy, for Corbin Smith, for Doug McCain, I am Brian Peacock. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 2024 Locked On NFL season preview of the NFC West. If you want to hear how the other divisions will play out this year, subscribe to Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.